To another beautiful day. I'm Berlin Weeks, B2B. This is Mark Putrino. He's your professor, and he's going to take you through the markets today. Mark, what do you got going on, buddy?
Well, I saw something that's very disturbing. Tom Brady and Kim Kardashian rumors.
Oh, no.
Yeah, can you believe it?
You know what? I wouldn't put it past Tom. Tom's old. He's trying to get him some booty. I'm being
The
honest.
guy's Tom Brady. He could,
Yeah, but
it's
she's
like there's
also
a lot
worth
of
like
women
$1
he could.
billion. Why wouldn't he go rolling with it? You saw him playing around with Sam's Game Bankman Fraud trying to do some TikToks. So why wouldn't he go down here and hang out with Kim? I mean,
I don't know because he's got daughters and she's a disgusting human being. Maybe.
well, I know that, Mark, but I mean, he don't care. I mean, listen, let's look at the world, right? 99.9% of the people in this world are selfish as hell and ain't changing. So if Tom says, you know what, I'm going to go about my way for my life for a while, I mean, I guess he's got the right to do that, just like everybody else has.
Yeah, it's kind of like.
I mean, it's not cool, but it is what it is.
It's like when Ted Danson started hooking up with Whoopi Goldberg. It's like, dude, you're Ted Danson, man. You're Sam from Cheers. You can probably do better. All right. Anyway, let's jump in the markets here because we had a pretty weak day yesterday. But, well, first of all, let's see where we are today. First thing I'm going to look at is the S&P 500 ETF here.
And the real cool thing before we get really started is they found where that cocaine was at, and it was in a cubby hole outside the Situation Room. So there's a camera there. We obviously know who dropped the cocaine.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking this morning. They got to have this stuff on film.
Absolutely. And to not tell us just piles on the lies that have been perpetual lies. And it's just, you can't trust anything that's said now. And it's sad, man. Really sad.
So you think it's hunters?
I don't know who the hell it is. And, the fact of the matter is, if somebody left their cocaine in a cubby outside the Situation Room, we got a really bad problem with the people going in there doing their job when they're fucked up on cocaine. Excuse my mouth, when they're messed up on cocaine. That's a big job.
I mean, that could have been anthrax.
That's a big job, right? That's not a job that you want, your everyday guy that's got a little addiction problem being in charge of, going into the Situation Room and making decisions about the whole entire world. And if that's the case, then we really need to find out who that person is. But if it is Hunter, it just adds more to the pile.
It's got to be someone who has some kind of clout there because, like I said, that could have been anthrax. And if someone opened that and spilled it, a lot of people could have gotten infected with anthrax. So,
dude, it could have been a test.
They got to search people before they go in there.
It could have been a test of one of those like Millie. Millie could have thrown it in there because, he's not really an American. He honestly is not a joint chief. He is about as far from a general that I've ever seen in my life. But he might have left it there just to see if he could throw in some Wuhan flu fucking something or something. I don't know.
He is
a squeeze, man. And so is Austin. They picked the perfect people. Like Nancy Pelosi came out and said, we've got the perfect president for this situation.
Remember that picture of Blinken and what's his face there with the guy from Ukraine?
Yeah.
And they're like just totally like smiling.
That's because they're part of the industrial complex, the military industrial complex.
Let me see if I got that. I mean, I know I got it somewhere. I just don't know.
And then to find it come out that Blinken was actually part of Joe Biden's think tank at whatever the Penn U, I guess, University of Pennsylvania. And that was funded by China. And then we're not doing anything against China. And China's basically just pulling their shirt off and flexing their muscles in our face and spitting at us. And we're just going, what? What you need more money? Sure, we'll buy some more stuff from you. Send us some of those toxic aqua beads so our kids can die when they suck on those things. The ones that were loaded with MDMA. You remember those a few years ago?
Vaguely.
Yeah.
What's the president of Ukraine's name?
Zelensky.
How do you spell it?
Zelensky. Just start spelling it. He'll show up. There you go. All you got to do is put a Z up there anymore. He's so popular.
Lincoln, Zelensky, and then oh yeah, good. It's
there you go. Austin, Lincoln, and Zelensky.
Look at this. All right. Now, these guys are there. This is April of 22. Okay. These guys are there because there's a war going on. Okay. Look at their faces. like they're smiling. Like this is like it's like a let me just get rid of that.
It's just they're. I'm telling you, they're part of this military industrial complex, and they
This
know.
just shows you how stupid they are. It's like they're there for a war. People are dying.
Yep.
Someone should tell them, "Hey, smiling is not appropriate in this situation." Look at this idiot. It looks like he's getting like a LinkedIn portrait done. They just have their top buttons. Their hands are right at their side. I mean, this is every human being should be offended by
Yeah.
this. It's like these idiots are there because there's a war going on and because people are dying, and they're treating it like a photo op. And there's no one that says to them, "Hey guys, that's not a good look. Try to look serious. Look at this guy. You don't see him smiling,
No.
right? It's because his people are getting killed." But he's like, "Ooh, hi, yeah, I'm Anthony Blinken." I can't even talk, and this guy is worthless too.
Well, and that's the dynamic
So,
duo that negotiated the Taliban withdrawal. The
yeah,
withdrawal from
and this
Afghanistan.
is
I mean, my
this is
goodness.
the guy who figured out came up with the whole Hunter Biden's computer isn't real
Yeah, it's
argument.
amazing how strong Anthony Blinken is on the dark side. That boy, he'll do anything for the Sith Lord.
These guys are just each disgraces,
Yeah.
man. They really, this whole administration is, everyone in it is just a disgrace.
Well, they've just marked up
I'm
every one of
sorry.
those offices. Every one of those offices has a black mark on it now. It's just been they lie. They just I don't know. I don't even know how you fix the problem that they've done in the government, because it's kind of over bloated, and you have all these alphabet soups on top of alphabet soups telling people what to do, and too many departments with too many regulatory powers over people.
All right. Yeah. I mean, it's really kind of sad when you think about the great men we've had in our history.
Absolutely.
And then think that these people, I think Kamala Harris gets an airplane for herself just to fly around. And all right. Anyway, move on to these markets here, because we had some weakness yesterday, right? And as kind of expected, I guess. I don't think we were really surprised. But we got to resistance here, and then remember, so we can get resistance at former resistance levels, because there are people who bought here who regret their decision to do so when the price goes lower. So they tell themselves, if it gets back to my price, I'm going to get out. So as we rallied back, you got these remorseful buyers placing sell orders, and that formed resistance here. Now, when some of the people want to sell notice the price isn't going up anymore, they assume that there are other sellers coming into the market, which is why the price isn't going up anymore. And they start to worry they're not going to be able to get their shares off, so they cut ahead of them. And this is what causes our downtrend here. So pretty decent sized sell-off yesterday. We did finish well off our lows. Let's see where the low was yesterday, 437. But there's no rebound at all this morning. So it's even, I mean,
Yeah, it's even down.
very, very tiny bit.
Well, it's filling that gap now, right?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it.
So I mean, that's pretty amazing that even on the whole entire market, the weight of SPY, the gap still refill, and up and fast up and fast down is an absolute.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, I've been thinking about this stuff for 25 years, and it's really just mind-boggling if you think about just how big these markets are, and how is it that the valuations on these different days are this same. See, this is one of the issues I have with, and I think people that want to trade should think about this, is hello, Mr. Savage, and like a typical fundamental manager, they don't look at charts. They look at price to earnings ratios and so forth and so on. Now, how is it that this huge market, right here, was in this period here of like a 2 months, we lost 20% of our value? Okay. Did the economy shrink by 20%? I mean, what happened? And then here we gained 17%. Actually, we gained 20%, and we get right back to where we started. So the question is this: is what happened in between here that made the market go lower? And if you're just thinking about this in terms of valuations, you can't explain it. In order to understand it, you got to consider the fact that this is a graphical illustration of investor psychology. That's why we get resistance at former resistance levels, like we had here, right? Resistance. Yeah, so it's really kind of mind-boggling stuff. Like, look at what we got here, right? So people buy here, and then the price goes higher, but then it comes lower, and then a lot of the people who bought it regret doing so, and they tell themselves they want to sell, and so they place their sell orders at the level that they bought at. So the thing is this, man, this is like trillions and trillions of dollars, tens of millions of people all over the world investing in this stuff, and we get this phenomena where we get these like really precise levels. And if you're not thinking about psychology, you just can't explain that. It can't be done. And if you believe in random walk theory, I got news for you. If random walk was true, every price level would have the exact same importance, so there wouldn't be support or resistance levels. And if you think you can't outtime the market, well, I would say you're wrong, because if you know what to look at, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but if you know what to look at, it makes it a lot easier. If you listen to every pundit on TV and saying, oh, the market's down because of this, or the market's up because of that, you're just going to confuse the hell out of yourself, because vast majority of the time, these people are wrong. From a trading point of view, why did we sell off yesterday? Well, I just explained it. You could kind of say, all right, well, maybe it's because the job data was so strong, and the Fed is kind of saying this. Guess what? Without it knowing anything about the news, if you were reading this chart the right way, this sell-off would not have surprised you at
Well,
all.
we've seen
So it's
that
almost like,
rollover pattern a lot, where it has those little the candles, and then it rolls over and goes right back down.
yeah. So if I think if you didn't listen to the news and you just watched the charts, your research probably wouldn't be that much different.
Right.
All right, so now we're going to go look at the tech sector, which is the second biggest. Man, we got that smoke coming in from Canada again.
Oh man, really?
It's like, it just makes you feel sick, man. I went outside yesterday, and it was like 95 degrees, and it's just a smoky haze. I guess the winds have shifted, though. It's not that bad today, but it just makes you feel sick. It's like you're basically inhaling smoke, and you can't get away from it. All right, so what we got going on here? All right, so tech tech opened down yesterday, but it rallied. But it's really not doing that much this morning. So to me, this sector is still kind of neutral. Healthcare was looking a little on the weak side, so let's take a look at that. Yeah, so healthcare is our second biggest sector. A pretty big move for it, 80 basis points. Now, if this starts to give way and this breaks down through the lower side of this, or this trading range it's been in, so this is $130. And that's another amazing thing. It's like, this is a sector worth trillions of dollars, and yet somehow the ETF, which is the basket of all the stocks, finds support or resistance, such a precise, well-defined level.
Well, Johnson & Johnson
like 130
off yesterday too, I believe. And I believe UNH.
What's that?
I believe UNH and Johnson & Johnson were down yesterday, which would explain that.
Yeah. Those are the two biggest healthcare companies. UNH. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, wow. It's kind of holding up this morning, though.
Yeah.
And let's see, Johnson & Johnson. Their whole evil baby food, or no, I'm sorry, baby powder.
Yeah.
Now look at this. I haven't looked at this stock, and I don't even remember when. But as you people that are listening to me start to get some more experience, you'll see things like this happen. Like, you'll put in a line, and then won't look at the chart for some time, a couple of weeks, and then you look at it again, and it's like, wow, look at that. That stopped yesterday exactly on the line that I drew back here. I mean, that's pretty amazing stuff here, right? Like, this opening price here was 164.25, and yesterday's low. Wait, hold on a second. All right, so the opening price here was 164. 25. Well, I think I'm looking at something the wrong way here. And this low yesterday was 161. That's not right? I think maybe I have my dividends are not right. Labels, countdown to bar close. All right, I'm gonna have to figure this out later, I guess, because this just doesn't seem right here. Opening here is 164, and then the low over here is 161. All right. Anyway, that's got to have something to do with dividends.
Yeah, it does, because I'm looking at it on my chart and it shows 160.79, and actually it does. It is off.
Okay, there we go. All right, I just adjusted it for dividends. All right. Well, anyway, it's still the same thing, right? For whatever reason, we drew this line in here, and that's exactly where we found a bottom yesterday. So let's just see, like the low trade on this day was 161.03. The low trade yesterday was 161. So it's pretty amazing. And then you can even see up here this resistance level again, right? We got up to this here. The high trade here was let's call it 166, and yesterday's opening price was 166.27.
Well, and that's also that top on that far left candle there. I mean, that line goes through for a while.
All right, let me go. I just want to look at tech again here.
Keeping you off throwing you off your game. Sorry.
But yeah, I don't think the dividends wouldn't affect the ETF prices. But I just want to make sure. Yeah. So yeah, these look the exact same. All right. So I've been talking about the different sectors, or what I say are like in the driver's seat at different times. And it's all about financials. And that's kind of what our weakness was yesterday. But if you notice, we came all the way back and look at where we closed, right at 33.54. And that's a price level that goes back to, it was support back here, let's see if I adjust this a little bit. Maybe going to tighten this up a little. Actually, you know what? It's such a small number. I'm going to just leave it up there. We can't get too precise, although, as you can see, some of these ETFs, they can get really precise. All right. And now the big thing, I think, in the financials is to watch what the banks do, because I think these banks are in trouble. And I think that, there's a lot of unrealized losses out there because they invest in this commercial real estate. Getting a rebound here off of this $35 level. Well, it's only at 36, so we're still not out of the woods here. But this is a nice rebound this morning. Maybe there was some news on some of the banks. All right, next sector we look at is consumer discretionary, and here's another perfect example. If I ever write a textbook, this will be in it. Although I don't think people even read textbooks anymore. Now it's like you got to explain something to someone in like 10 seconds or less, or they move on.
In a YouTube short.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta figure out how to make some of those, because now that I got this restream, it'd be pretty easy.
Yeah.
But look at where we got to resistance. Exactly where we got to resistance back here. I mean, it's amazing. People take this for granted, but if you think about it in valuations, you just can't explain this. High trade on this day, so that's August 16th, almost a year ago. 173.04. High trade on this day, July 3rd, 172.81. So that's pretty darn close.
Yeah.
Again, there are people who bought back here who want to get out, but they hold on, and when it finally gets back to their price, they say, I'm out, man, I'm going to sell. So you got these remorseful buyers placing their sell orders, and if there's enough, that forms resistance. And then the seller, people want to sell, start to get a little anxious because they think there's other sellers around, so they undercut each other. And this is, here's your lot going on here. I could probably spend all day on this chart. Here's your gap up, and then we gapped right back down through it. There was not, when something gaps through price levels, meaning it doesn't trade at those price levels, well, you don't have a lot of time for this vested interest to form. One of the main reasons why we get support at former resistance levels is because people who sold here, some of them experience seller's remorse after the price goes higher. And when we go lower, you got these remorseful sellers trying to buy their shares back. If you get to a situation like this where you gap up, well, no one could have sold in there because it never traded there. Hello, Mr. Steven. Yeah, so no one could have sold in there. So if no one sold who's trying to buy their shares back, there's not going to be a lot of buy orders. So when people start to think, you know what, this is a little too rich here, I'm going to start selling. Well, they have a hard time finding buyers. And as a result, they got to knock the price down if they want to get their shares off. But again, perfect example of how resistance becomes support, support becomes resistance. It's astonishing, but a lot of people really, and even people that are like in the industry that I've met over the years, like I think they take this stuff here for granted. Most people on the street on Wall Street are fundamental people. They're looking at price to earnings ratios and price to sales ratios. But I don't know. The most successful people I know in terms of how much money they've made are the people who are what we call your proprietary traders. So they're kind of like a professional day trader, but they're not technically day traders because they can hold their positions overnight. But most of them try to get out so they don't have any overnight risk. But they take money and the firm's money and they trade it and they get compensated by keeping part of what they make. But the thing about that style is you can be flexible. As the market goes through these different kind of stages, you can change with it. Whereas if you get this like set in stone quantitative model or your buy and hold strategy, you kind of get frozen, right? You don't really think about changing. So anyway, if you look at the right stuff, I think it's pretty easy to outperform the market if you pay attention to the right stuff and the psychology. So psychology is like really the most important thing. And again, why would we have resistance at a former resistance level? Well, psychology. Why would we have support at a level that was support before? For whatever reason, this ETF likes this price level. That air was looking pretty bad out there. So you got support here, turns into resistance. Yeah, they say like millions and millions of acres have burned, and then support here.
It doesn't take much, man. And when that whole country's forest. I mean, seriously, what's really going to hurt is when the lumber prices go up again. That's going to destroy the housing market because that's a lot of lumber.
Really? That's a good point. I didn't even think about that. Let's take a look at lumber. Lumber futures. I forget the symbol. Let's see. LUMBER. LBR. I think they've changed the symbol. Lumber futures.
See that? I mean,
this is a pretty weird looking chart here. I don't think I'm looking at the right thing. LBR1. Yes, you know what? This is a near term contract. This isn't the rolling contract. I think they've changed that. Let me go do a little cheat here. Sure. When we look at commodities, what we're looking at is what we call a rolling contract or a continuous contract. What they're showing here is just the one that probably expires pretty soon. We want like the thing that shows, and I know that these guys used to have it because I saw it. I mean, I used to look at it pretty much all the time. All right, so let's see what lumber looks like. Business Insider, live price chart.
Yahoo has it as LBR = F, but it's still that same price, $554.50.
All right, here we go. All right, yeah. So this is their continuous contract. Wow, that's pretty interesting. Let's go to the 5-year chart. Yeah, well, look at this. I mean, that's so it was up to. Oh, now they got this set on percentages.
So that means that the inflation that's going to be stuck into these houses that is being built right now is going to be stuck in because of the high interest rates. It's not like you can get that back by selling your house and making a little profit. You're going to be buried in your house because of that curve right there. The people that bought lumber during then and built those houses, oh, they lost their butt. That's a
Yeah, I actually that's a trade I personally did pretty well on, and this isn't usually what I do, but my style. But I was down at I forget where I was. I was at a store, and but there was these couple guys that I could tell were contractors, and I heard them talking about how much the price of lumber had gone up. So me being a chart guy, I come back to my office and I look at the chart, and that was like that was probably like March of 21. And I mean, look at this thing had gone up, so much. But now look at where it is now. It's all the way down there. That's a pretty big difference. And I'm not very happy that these guys are not hooking me up with the rolling lumber chart. See, if we look at this, let's just look at oil. Oops. All right. So if we look at oil, this is what we call a continuous contract, right? And it's basically just a combination of all the contracts put together. Every one of these purple arrows down here is when the contract expires. So these are futures. So you could think of them kind of like their call options. When this one expires, we roll into the next one, and then we roll into the next one. So this is what we call the continuous contract. And for trading, this is all we need, unless you're trading. If you're actually trading the futures, you probably going to look at the charts of the individual future based on the month that you're trading. But for trading, trying to get exposure, know what's going on in the oil markets and getting exposure in the equity markets, this is more than enough to look at, and this is what people generally look at. But anyway, it's kind of weird that for whatever reason these guys don't have the lumber futures anymore, or the continuous lumber futures. Let me see if this is it. Yeah, so I don't know what's going on here and why this only goes back to here, but let's just take a look. Yeah. All right. Well, whatever. We got to keep an eye on that. Now, one of the ways you can get exposure is if lumber prices go up. We got to think: is it going to hurt these companies, or is it going to? I mean, are these fires? Is it going to hurt these companies, or is the price going up going to help them? And I mean, I don't know. But in order to see what companies are involved in lumber, we can go take a look at the basic materials
Pardon me.
that we look at. All right, so we can go in here and Lind, I don't know, like sure, like Weyerhaeuser, I know I'm not saying that right, is in here. And this is where we can find companies that would benefit from lumber. So let's see. Or it benefit or get hurt. I suppose it just depends to what degree. Like if it moves up enough, then people won't be buying it, right? But if it moves up a little, then they could pass through. Weyerhaeuser. What?
It should be WY, isn't it?
That's what I thought it was. It's not coming up.
Huh.
WY. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so this would be something interesting to watch here. We had a big spike up here, and now we're reversing. And again, we could see like we had clear support down here, clear resistance up here. All right, so let's keep going on here. XLI Industrials. Man, I can't believe Tom Brady's hooking up with
Kim Kardashian. No.
Kim Kardashian. It's like, dude, you gotta be kidding.
That don't even seem like a fit that's fittable.
You know what? I've been telling myself I'm going to do this for a while, and maybe I'll finally go. And and do it today. But I had this big picture of Tom Brady because I'm a lifelong Patriots fan. And then when he left the Patriots, I replaced it with my old picture of Steve Grogan. So my Tom Brady picture is over here leaning up against the wall. So I was thinking about going up onto the road and putting a sign on it saying, like, please take. Someone will take
yeah,
it.
dude. All you gotta do is set it out there. Somebody will grab him. Somebody like, did you
Or if
see
I
that
put,
Brady picture?
I could put for sale on it. That'll make people take it.
Oh yeah.
Right.
You know what you can do? You
When I
can
was a
leave a
kid,
little can out there by the road and say, "Hey, gratuity or gratuity." See if anybody will put the see if anybody will give you $1 or $2 for the picture when they buy it.
yeah. When I was a kid, my stepfather had this gas station, and there was this old stack of tires that sat out there for like 10 years, like in a corner in the yard there. And then one day, as a joke, one of his friends puts a for sale sign on it, and the next day they were gone. Someone had stolen them.
That's
I'm going to make this down to 103. So it's okay to tighten up your levels as we move along here, because sometimes a price level that's important doesn't stay important forever. So
Steve's got a good
we
point here,
can
Mark. That's national forest lumber, not contract lumber that's being burnt.
national forest. So it's not going to have.
Yeah, it won't be something that's under contract to be used for lumber.
Oh,
It's
okay. Yeah. So
natural.
maybe that's why we're not seeing any really
Yeah.
dramatic
Thank you, Steve.
results there. All right, XLI. Let's actually, the utilities have been pretty interesting. Yeah. Now look at this. We got 6420. So clear support here. Let me maybe tighten this one up a little bit. Get rid of this line. But you also got to remember the scale here. It probably looks like a bigger thing than it is, but so this line is at 64, and this low here is like 63.30. So bottoms tend to be more choppy than tops, and that's because they result after selling, whereas a top results because of buying. And people buy much slower or much more rationally than they sell, and that's because selling is driven by fear. But buying is driven by hope, and fear is a more powerful emotion. So that's why, in general, not always, but in general, markets tend to go down faster than they go up. Like, look at this here. I don't even remember what happened here, but we go into a free fall, and then we go up. But notice how the rate of going up is slower than the rate of coming down, and that's your emotion. Once again, that's emotions. Markets go down faster than they go up
What day was
because
that,
of
Mark?
emotion. Where?
Yeah,
Here?
the day that it took off, started falling.
I would say right here. This is September 21st.
All right, cool. I'll take a look at it.
And that you can see was where we had resistance become support, and then support becomes resistance over here. So this is the $72 level. So once again, we got a nice round level. And once again, if you think about how many different things have to happen, because this is a basket of, I don't know, maybe 50 different stocks, and yet somehow they come together at these price levels. It's pretty amazing stuff,
It really is.
And then even just to take it a step farther, it's like, what happened yesterday that made the utility industry lose 1.2% of its value, or the utility sector? And the answer is, nothing other than people's perceptions have changed. And let's go look at the energy sector. All right. We can see here, again, we have our very precise levels. Just want to see something here.
Mark, is that right about the time that the bond curve inverted?
Yeah, I think it is actually.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm reading here. As I'm going back in the news and I've looked at some of the articles, it looks like that's what it was the bond yield, the yield curve inverted at that time, and that sent the utilities into free fall.
Yeah. The yield curve is the most inverted it's been since the early 1980s, and since 55 there's been 9 recessions, and 8 of them were preceded by an inverted yield curve. So that's why people keep talking about
Dang.
this.
It looks like all Bidenomics
curve
is working.
Yeah, getting paid tens of
I
billions of
honestly
dollars.
think they're trying to shrink our economy and make us all live to accept a smaller way of life than the way we've lived. Freedom and being able to travel and access to your money. It's kind of ridiculous, the banking regulations that they put in place.
Well, it's a move towards socialism.
Yeah.
People don't want to work. They figure, why should I work when these rich guys have all this money? It's like, well, most rich people are entrepreneurs. And what I tell people when they say that is, when was the last time you got hired by a poor person?
Exactly.
If you're not in the government sector, like Steve Cohen over here has all these tens of billions of dollars, and guess what? They just put in a new intensive care unit down at the hospital, the Cohen Intensive Care Unit. So he's putting his money to good use. I mean, poor people aren't philanthropists, It's just that simple.
Yeah.
All right, so I just got to go through and chew these things up. But this is a good example here of how we got our price levels, right? Like, you don't need to be the guru to see this. So resistance over here becomes support. Support over here becomes resistance. All right, let me take a look at the news here, see what's going on other than Tom Brady and Kim Kardashian, which is just terrific if you ask me.
Hey,
who knows? Maybe because like so many women have thrown themselves at him over the years, he's kind of like, yeah, I got to go. I got to like stop worrying about going to the steakhouse, and tonight I'm going to go over to McDonald's.
Yeah. Hey, I got a rocket launch tonight, man. Saw my first one. Well, not my first one. My first one actually from my backyard the other day. I got one today at 3:33. It's going to be kind of cool.
Really? Yeah. Wow. Where is that? Cape Canaveral?
Cape Canaveral, yeah. SpaceX is shooting up some more Starlink satellites today.
Yeah. Really? Interesting. Again, here's another example of private industry leading what the government should be doing, right? I mean, I'm sure he's way ahead of where NASA is. Hiring eased slightly. All right, so we have the job data come out. Employers added 209,000, and I think that was pretty much right in line with the estimates.
But with the CPIs, like you showed us the other day, the PMIs going down, is it just this one number has that much more weight versus the rest of what everybody else sees in the economy, or are people just that bullish?
I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Well, you remember you showed us the other day where the PMI numbers were under 50, and they had been falling constantly since, I don't know, September.
Yeah.
But the job numbers came in right in line, so that means the economy's on fire. But even though the stock market goes down, sometimes it's confusing, Mark. And I guess maybe it's because I look at it logically like a businessman looks at it instead of like you would have to look at it as a trader, I guess.
Well, sometimes good news is bad news, and sometimes bad news is good news for when it comes to the economy and the market. Like those job numbers came in well over estimates yesterday, which leads me to think there's got to be something, it was a different job numbers, but there's got to be some kind of an anomaly there. But the perception is, we're adding jobs, the economy is strong, therefore we're going to have to raise interest rates. This is taking away the argument that the Fed could pause more or even stop raising interest rates. So it's pretty, I don't know, it's pretty more incompetence. When they were telling us inflation was transitory, it's like, are you kidding me? I mean, I started writing about inflation in almost 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Because copper prices were starting to really rip higher. So I don't know. I guess down at the Fed there, they don't have charts, maybe. I don't know. Maybe we should invite Janet Yellen to join the class. She could certainly afford it. $90,000 for an hour-long speech.
She's $60,000 an hour.
90,000.
90.
Yeah.
She doesn't have $90,000 an hour worth of words in her mouth.
she like, I don't know. I don't want to like stereotype, but if I met her, and you asked me like, oh, what do you think she does for a living? I would say, oh, she's probably a teacher. Probably like a kindergarten teacher or a fourth grade teacher, right? Like that's what she looks like. I mean, maybe she's a brilliant woman, but I don't know why no one saw inflation when I saw it. So,
Well, they were told not to
I
say
mean,
that. You could tell when she first started talking about it that she was lying, that she knew it was sticky as hell. It wasn't just transitory. And same thing with Powell. Powell knew this was a lie. I mean, honestly, I don't
yeah,
honestly think that we've been told the truth from day one since the Biden administration took office. I think that's just his playbook is to lie, 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 lie.
it's almost like he's a pathological
Yeah,
liar. It's like he does it so much he doesn't even realize it. Like remember when he was saying he was a truck driver, and then he was saying like, he was good friends with his conductor on Amtrak, but it turns out the guy had retired like 10 years before the period he was talking about. And then a couple of weeks ago, he's on the. I think this was pretty funny. A couple of weeks ago, and I don't know why no one calls him out on this, but a couple of weeks ago, he was on one of those Sunday shows talking about how he had a epiphany that it was okay for gay people to get married back when he was in high school. He said, "Oh, I was with my dad, and my dad's like, Joey, you see those two men there?" I guess it was a gay, uh, two men gay couple. He's like, they love each other. Marriage is all about love. So I had this epiphany that gay marriage should be okay. And then the dude becomes a senator and he speaks out against gay marriage for 50 years. You know, so if he had this epiphany, why was he against it for so long?
listen,
I mean, why doesn't anyone call him out on
Mark, I don't know
it?
why they
I
don't
just
call out that. I watched the other day where they said that the government, the Biden administration, was going to finally have to stop coercing or calling these social media companies and asking for censorship. How come he declared COVID over a year ago, right? They're still censoring people from social media companies. That's crazy, man. They've gone all over and out of bounds of what the Constitution is, and then to watch these people go crazy over the fact that none of them know civics, none of them know that the Constitution is the law, and the Congress doesn't have the right to change. And I know I harped on this yesterday, but it's really frustrating, man. It's really frustrating to watch the Constitution just get destroyed by these people.
yeah, they're really just they're really just out of
But
control.
then they have no
Like they're
checks
just
and balances in place to make it not happen again. I mean, you could say this is a soft coup. What happened against the economy and against the American people in this last election?
well, I don't know if you remember this, but during one of Trump's State of the Union speeches, maybe the one where Nancy Pelosi completely embarrassed herself by ripping it up, but I don't know if it was that one. But Trump said, "Under me, the United States will never become a socialist country." And all the Republicans stood up and clapped, and none of the Democrats
That's
did.
right.
So there's not a single Democrat that thinks, socialism is bad. I mean, if John F. Kennedy was alive today, he'd be a Republican. Bill Clinton would probably be a Republican because they were Democrats, but they were rational and smart. It wasn't just like, because I hate Donald Trump, I can't call the COVID virus the China virus. I got to call it COVID because calling it a China virus is racist. Even though historically diseases get named after where they come from.
Yes.
Lyme disease was first found in Lyme, Connecticut.
Spanish flu.
It's like SARS. I don't know what SARS is the acronym for, but it refers to where they first found it. It just shows you the level of I don't know. Just I kind of tend to think it's over for the United States. I mean, I think maybe one day we will be a socialist country. People like I live in a very wealthy area, right? I live in Fairfield County in the north part of Stanford, which is about a mile from Greenwich, where there's these rolling estates that cost $30-40 million. And what used to amaze me is I used to take the train down to Baltimore, and when we would go through like southern Philadelphia and parts of Baltimore, I'm on the Amtrak there. You look out and it's just like, wow, like you would think you were in like Bangladesh. There's like in Baltimore, there's just these rows and rows and rows of abandoned, row houses. There's garbage all over the place. I remember seeing this like dog that you could see its ribs, like it hadn't eaten. You know, you don't even. And then my friend who actually lives in the nice part of Baltimore, you know, he picks me up at the train station, and we go ripping around Baltimore, and it's like he's blowing through stop signs and blowing through red lights, and all of a sudden I realized it's like, hey, there's no cops around, so you can do whatever you want.
So is that because of the way the government is ran in Baltimore, or is that just I don't know? Is it just because? I mean, is there a specific reason for that in those bigger cities, or is it policies that they put in place, or is it just
I would imagine it's a lot of different things. You know, I mean, maybe it's like that they never changed. Baltimore, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, every city is probably different. I don't know why some areas are so bad and some areas are so good, and why there's such a you know level like all right. Again, I'm in Stanford. To get to Bridgeport, it's about half an hour from here, and they had that on the show Live Patrol. They were coming from Bridgeport, and the president of Bridgeport University was like, "You got to take the show off because no one's going to come to school here." Because they're like, all right, now we're going to go to South Carolina where officers have caught 3 teenagers drinking beer. And then it's like, oh, now we're going back to Bridgeport where we have, 10 officers in full body gear with automatic weapons are going to this to go stop like a shootout, and my sister is actually a psychiatrist or psychologist in the Bridgeport school district. And like, I don't know if this happens in other states, but she was telling me how the state of Connecticut rewards schools by how good they're doing. So the kids that come from the rich schools or the rich towns that tend to do good in school, like New Canaan or Darien, they're the ones who get all the state funding. Whereas the school that really needs the funding, like the ones in Bridgeport, they don't get any funding because they don't pass whatever criteria it is that you need to pass to get this funding. So it's like it just kind of exacerbates what's going on. So I mean, I really don't know. I mean, that's beyond my level of knowledge, but it's really shocking how there could be such discrepancy. But then again, we have to realize that in the overall scheme of things, in our country, poor people are pretty well off, man. They have high def televisions, they have cell phones, they have cars. It's not like anyone's starving to death. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but if in Grapes of Wrath, remember like all the Okies that left Oklahoma, went out to California, like some of them were starving to death. I mean, I don't know if that really happened, but
as many programs as we have nowadays, Mark, that's really something that shouldn't happen. And I think it's more like where I was from, we had a lot of problems with kids not being fed, like going home from school and not having food there. But we were from an economically depressed area, is where I'm originally from. And it's just because it's a farming community, and there's just a group of people that kind of don't let anything else happen there. So it stays the way it is. And it's just everybody lives on a basic income. Basically, a few people make a lot of money, but some make none. And so a lot of the kids don't have food. So there's programs to feed these kids all the time, backpack programs where they'll pack a backpack and send it home with the kid for the week or something like that. So nowadays it's kind of inexcusable for a kid to go hungry.
Yeah, well, I'm not so sure there are people who are. I mean, I've never seen anyone who's starving to death in the United States.
Well, no, I mean, that's true. I mean, that's true too.
But again, yeah, I mean, I don't know how things can be so messed up in some places and not other places. All right, so now that these job numbers are out, we're just down a little bit, and I'm gonna hit the road because I got to get on my 8:45 call. And just there's going to be no show on Monday and Tuesday because I'm going to be traveling to take my daughter up to visit her college. So yeah, so everyone, I'll see you back here on Wednesday morning.
Everybody have a great weekend. Thank you for joining us today.